Well, for his take now on this first budget, we're joined by Clive Palmer, the head of the Palmer United Party. Clive Palmer, good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael. Great to be here.
If you had to rate this budget on a scale of 1 to 10, what mark would you give it?
Probably 4.25, something like that, because it's a budget based on lies. First of all, it's based on the fact that they say our debt is out of control. If you get the OECD figures, you see Australia's got 12% of its GDP in debt. The average for the OECD of all our advanced economies is 73%. There is no debt crisis, so this is an excuse to have an ideological budget, one that can hit people that they don't like. And that's what it's all about, and everybody suffers. $15 billion taken out of the health budget really means that all states now must sell their hospitals to business and they must make a profit. That's what it really means. They're the sinister things. Putting the pension age up to 70, it means all Australians don't get their super until one day before they die, and that money's left with all the fund managers who make more and more money and give more and more money to the Liberal Party. It's all about that.
Joe Hockey and Tony Abbott made it very clear with promises before the election they wouldn't be doing a lot of what transpired in there last night. How do you think they'll go about trying to now explain that to voters?
Well, if I made those promises as a company director, it would be deceptive and misleading conduct and I'd be thrown in jail. Of course, they can lie to the Australian people, get their votes off them and say, ha ha, now we can do what we want. We can take off our mask and say who we really are. But it's sad for the pensioners, the unemployed. It's sad that we've got no vision for this country of what we might be and what we might become. That's what's sad. We need to look forward. We need to stimulate the economy. We need to move, for example, our provisional tax reporting date to the end of the year. Release $70 billion into the economy. Create jobs for people, more revenue. And every time that $70 billion spent, you get 10% GST, $21 billion more revenue for the Commonwealth, and let's put more money into health because already we're on the lowest level of healthcare in the OECD.
The government confirmed that high income levy on people earning more than $180,000. What's your take on that? And if it got to the Senate after July, would you try to oppose it?
Oh, we'd just vote against it because it's based on a false premise. You know, we're not in a debt crisis. Rupert Murdoch got it right when he spoke at the IPA function last year in Sydney. And he said Australia has among the lowest debt levels in the world. And now we find these boys are on here doing that. If it wasn't for the independence of the ABC, Australians wouldn't know what was happening.
And the fuel excise going up?
Well, that's
confirmed?
Well, going up the fuel excise isn't a big thing, it's indexed. So it'll go up automatically every year without stealth. So Australians can look forward to increased petrol prices every year. That's why I started our party, because it's time we got this country going again.
You talked about debt, but let's look at the budget deficit. There are credible moves to get a very large budget deficit, now about $50 billion, down to only just over $2 billion by 2017 and then into surplus. Surely you've got to concede the government's on the right deficit reduction path here.
Well, look at the United States. It's a struggling economy. It only boosts its unemployment, dominates the world economically. How many surpluses do you think it's had in the last 50 years? 12. They've taken the game onto something which doesn't really matter. Do you run your account with a surplus, or do we borrow when you use credit? That's a modern thing that we can use to make our lives better. I mean, our whole debt, as I said, is only equivalent to 3 months of our GDP. I bet you your debt at home is more than 3 months of your economic activity. This is just lies, not lies and broken promises. It is that, but it's lies because they're creating the idea of that we're in trouble, and that's why they've got the debt tax, so that they can do all these things and say this is what we're happening. And of course, the media, centrally controlled in Australia, is buying all that, and it's becoming propaganda. But Rupert Murdoch should get the Joseph Goebbels Award for propaganda, because that's what's happening in this country with News Limited. They're just pumping out the government's propaganda, and of course, people can only get their information from one source.
You talked about the changes affecting welfare recipients, the disadvantage. Do you concede, though, on the other side of the coin, corporate Australia has got off fairly scot-free in this first budget?
Well, of course, they support the Liberal Party. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't we increase the GST? Because business gets a rebate. That's the next thing on the agenda. Next year at this time, they'll be increasing income taxes. They'll be squeezing you more and more to get more of your money into their hands because they want control. It's ideological control they want. And they want to bring back slavery, I think. That'll be probably the budget after next, you know.
I don't think they want to bring back slavery. Now, how do you see this budget going through the Senate? Lots of very contentious measures and lots of very large pockets of money in forms of revenue that may be at threat, which could see a recasting of the budget.
Well, the Liberal and Labor Party, as they have their lattes and coffees in Parliament House together, have got a mutual pact that whatever in the supply bills goes through the Senate. Of course, that's not what the Constitution says. That's not how the Parliament was drawn up to operate. operate. But if there's measures there that will hurt Australians, that the Labor Party's got the guts to oppose, be it maybe not in a supply bill, I'm sure they'll get our support.
You mentioned the media. The ABC's budget was cut by 1%. The Australian network, the overseas service, abolished altogether. What's your view on that?
Well, it's just another attempt. The next thing will be they want to privatise the ABC in 3 or 4 years' time. And the centrally controlled media, no matter how much they criticise me, I'm the biggest criticised person in Australia, is bad for democracy. We need a diversity of opinion, diversity of ideas, and politicians shouldn't mess with it. They certainly shouldn't take away public funds from the ABC.
Just finally, before you go, just to try to nail you down, firstly, well, both on the debt levy and the co-payment, will you oppose that in both of those measures in the Senate?
Well, definitely oppose the co-payment. You imagine being a pensioner and earning $300 a week, and you're 87 and you've got to go to the doctor 4 or 5 times a week, and that takes up 1/3 of your income because of the co-payment. And that's what people are facing in this country, and I'm an Australian, I care about these people, and I'm not going to back down on it.
And the debt tax?
Well, the debt tax again will oppose because there's no reason for it. If the Prime Minister can show to me where we're in debt and how we're forming out of step with the rest of the OECD, then I'll consider it. But it's not, it's just a lie.
Clive Palmer, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Good morning, it's great to be here.